Alright, in today's video I'm going to teach you how to start off concrete like a pro. So what you want to do is you want to pick part of the concrete that has the most grooves in it to just help you with traction. And sometimes in motocross you want to have the biggest sweeping corner position as far as on the gate, but you got to keep in mind typically the inside is going to be the shortest distance between A and B. So if you don't have a big sweeper, well, you can get there first and slow everybody down. So those are two things to think about. Usually Supercross, it's always the shortest because it's usually a 90-degree corner. Mainly in motocross, it's typically a big sweeper. So sometimes if you're on the way outside, you can hold it wide, but typically you want to be somewhere in the middle where it's a happy medium between the short distance between A and B and a big sweeper. So step number one is we don't ever want to touch the front brake on concrete, and we don't want to use a hole shot button. And the reason being is when you use a hole shot button, you're putting all the weight on the front end, and that rear wheel is going to unweight and spin. And if you spin on concrete and do a burnout, you're not going anywhere. You're not getting traction and going forward. And with the front brake, typically on dirt, you hold yourself back with the clutch and the front brake. We don't do that on concrete because, again, it's putting pressure. The front forks are going to compress and it's going to unweight. And then as far as body positioning goes, we want to be fairly in the middle, like pretty much all the time, because on concrete conditions don't change. And on slippery conditions on dirt, you'll sometimes be up here, sometimes you'll be here, but on concrete you're always going to want to be centered on the motorcycle. And you're going to want to have your feet in between the pockets here to help hold you up, because once you release the clutch you can hold yourself in a position. But sometimes, depending upon the concrete, I've even been behind because I'm short. I'm 150 pounds, so I need to put as much weight on that rear wheel as possible. And then the next thing is I've noticed some people using the shock hole shot buttons. I've never tried one, but I could definitely see how that would help as far as compressing the shock down. And once you get going, you're going to have like a small pelvic tilt. If you've seen any of my seat bounce videos, once you go, you're going to kind of hunch your hips forward to try to get as much traction on that rear wheel, almost as if like you're bunny and hop off the gate here, because we don't want to slip. We want to have as much traction on the concrete as possible. And then here's another little tip. If you got one of these fancy little traction control guys, depending upon how slippery it is, it tones the motor down, tones the rear wheel, so it retards it, so you're not going to spin as often. And if they let you, in professional racing, you have a block behind you, so you can't start from a rolling get going. But cheater tip, if you don't have rules like that, you could start way back and then start letting that clutch out slowly, 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 so that you've got like a mile an hour before that gate drop. It's going to help you from spinning, and it's going to give you some forward momentum, able to go forward. And you always want to show up a couple motos before so you can see what they're doing with the 30-second board, and you can almost time it. Typically in the local level, they have a 30-second board. They go sideways, they count 1, 2, 3, gate drops. They don't really change it up. Professional racing, they've held it on me for 15, 20 seconds before where I burn my clutch up. So typically you can time it. And if you can time it and you have enough balls, you can just go 1, 2, 3 and go. So typically I will do a burnout in first gear before maybe around a minute before the gate is getting ready to go, so that I've got hot rubber on the concrete and my tire is hot, and it just gives me a little bit more traction. And in order to do that, I can make another tutorial on how to do that, but essentially you just put it in first, hold the bike back with the front brake, kind of pop up like you're trying to set the hole shot device, and you slip the clutch and it unweights the rear wheel so that you can now spin. And this is in slow-mo, so it looks like I did it for 30 seconds, but it was only 3 to 4 seconds of doing that. I actually went a little excessive, but you get the idea. So I always do that depending upon if I really want to get a good start or not. It does take off the little tip of the knobbies, but hey, no one said motocross was cheap, right? So let's see some examples I'm always in second gear, never be in first gear if you're on a big bike trying to start on concrete. Take notice of my body position. I'm straight up and down, centered on the motorcycle. My feet are in front of the foot pegs. My hand is not on the front brake. My elbows are up. I tilt my little hips. That one I didn't have as good of a pelvic tilt. You could tell that I spun a little bit the first maybe 4 inches, which that would have hindered me getting a really good start. I still think it was a good start, but with a bunch of professionals, I probably would have been mid-pack. You know what I always say, practice makes proficient. Notice I start in second gear. This one, I believe I have a much more pronounced pelvic tilt, which is going to put more weight on that rear wheel, and it's going to almost have a small little wheelie right at first, but you'll tell that I get much more traction and no real spin. Still centered on the motorcycle. I'd have to say I'd give myself an 8 out of 10, maybe. Be nice, maybe 9. So next, we'll do it in real time, and notice that I'm not near as hard on the throttle with this, because if I was, I'd have to hold myself back with the front brake. This is more of a Well, as always, I hope that was helpful. Please burn out that like button because it helps my video get to the top and more people can see it and view it. And, you know, I guess if you want to help me out, burn out the like button.